I'm Westbrook with GeekWire Studios here at AWS reInvent, joined now by the global lead of cloud and infrastructure services for DXC technology, Chris Drumgoole. Chris, welcome, and how are you enjoying the show so far?
It's great. Thanks for having me, Brian. It's great to be here, and good, but I've gotten my steps in. It's a lot bigger than I remember.
It is a big show. Every time we come to Vegas, I think we forget how big the show is, and often we forget how big DXC is. Why don't you walk us through where DXC came from?
You know, it's funny, we say that all the time, we're the biggest company that you've never actually heard of. But the company has actually a 100-year history, but what most people remember is about 6 years ago, HP and CSC merged their services business together, and DXC was formed. And that's who we are today. And
you've been involved for quite some time. Talk to us about what solutions you're providing to some of your customers, and perhaps you've got some examples?
Sure. Well, we have 133,000 people all over the world serving our customers who are in every industry you could think of, from banking to aviation, financial services, retail. And the way we like to talk about it is we're kind of the company that runs everything that you've really never thought about. But to give you an example, we just coming off a busy travel weekend or a busy holiday, some of the world's largest airlines rely on our system. So when you're standing at that gate and that flight's about to take off, all the technology that's balancing the weights, telling the pilot what to do, that's all being run by our people around the world in a very high availability environment. Or maybe another customer that we think of is, everybody's heard of Lloyd's of London, where Beyonce goes to insure her voice or her legs. Every transaction on that exchange, as everybody comes in to insure, is also run by DXC. So we're the whole heart and soul behind that. And those are just two examples, but generally if you look across our customers, which are about half of the Fortune 500 on the big side, we tend to run the systems that run their business.
Gotcha. Now let's go back to aviation for just a minute, because you mentioned travel. I'm a big travel geek myself. You're the person that says that my bag is overweight. Is it you to blame for that?
No, because I'm usually on the other side of that. If you've ever seen me pack, I'm on the other side of that equation myself, especially if you've seen my wife and kids pack. No, but what happens is, if you think about a flight taking off and leaving the gate, there's a massive amount of data and systems that have to come together to make sure everything's in the right place at the right time. And the airlines obviously do all that work, but we're very proud to support them in running the systems and tools that they use to accomplish that. So we're not the person telling you that your bag overweight, but unfortunately we are the system that person's typing into when they make that decision, and then when that weight gets calculated in with the balance of that plane to make sure that flight takes off safely.
Gotcha. So you're kind of pulling it all together and using tools that you've helped develop in conjunction with the customer, in this case the airline, to make that easy for the end user, or in this case the agent, to type in and make that happen.
100%. We kind of pride ourselves on becoming part of the customer, if you will. Okay. So if you were to, American Airlines is a large customer, they've spoken about us publicly. If you were to go to our American Airlines team, I'd venture to say that the American Airlines team doesn't really know the difference between a DXC person and an American person. Sure. We're all there trying to help the airline get their flights off on time.
And what is your strategy when you engage with a customer to solve a problem, whether it be American or another big company? How do you start that partnership, and what are the first, second, and third steps in working it sounds like in seamless conjunction with those partners?
Yeah, that's what we really pride ourselves on. I mean, everyone says it, but in our business, providing essential services, if you're not all about your customer, you're gonna fail. So we really start there. And I think that's part of our value, is that, and I mean no offense considering where we're sitting, but we don't come to the table saying you must do this or you must do that. We really say we've got hundreds of thousands of talented people, we've got a deep bench who understand different industries. Let's figure out your problem with you, and then we can bring the right people to assemble the best solution. And it sounds very simple, and in some ways on paper it is, but it's as complex as every different customer. And we really kind of pride ourselves on having that ability and that industry knowledge to be able to come and say, hey, we've seen this problem before, we've done this before, we know this solution from AWS or from whoever can help bring that together for you. And that's typically where we start.
So do you work in a platform agnostic sort of sense? You like problem solving, here are the tools we have?
Well, we certainly do. I mean, we certainly have our favorites, and we know what works, but our favorites are our favorites because we've seen them work before. Right. But generally speaking, again, our customers tend to be very large and very complex. So by definition, they already have an IT estate. They've made decisions sometimes over 30 years, and we have to live with those decisions and help them modernize and change. So we really will support anything, and we do. We have some systems that people probably don't even know are systems anymore in the world, but it's really our job to help them then figure out how those work, figure out their journey, how they want to get there, and how they do that in a safe and cost-effective manner.
Now we've talked, if you'll pardon the pun, from a high level. We were talking about aviation earlier.
Yeah.
I want to bring it down just a little bit to the clouds, if you will.
Yeah.
Cloud and infrastructure strategy. Talk to us about your approach toward that and what solutions you're building for your customers.
Yeah, so I mean, we obviously are very big fans of the cloud, great partners with AWS and the others, and we have almost all of our customers are using cloud in some way, shape, or form. But again, I'll come back to the fact that our customers run really complex, sometimes old workloads. So we view our job as to say, our customers have a range of solutions. Oftentimes for many of them, it goes as far back as a traditional mainframe up to complete modern serverless, right? But our customer still has to make sure all of that works together. All of that is secure. Some of our customers are some of the most attacked people on the planet, and all of that is done cost effectively. And our job is really help them on that journey. So it is very typical that we'll have a customer that is running infrastructure in every single one, mainframe, mid-range, traditional server, private cloud, public cloud, you name it. And we talk about it as kind of just intelligent infrastructure. Our job is to help our customer make sure that it works across those things and that they have the flexibility to make the business decisions that they need.
You mentioned some of your favorite partners. Of course, we are at AWS reInvent. I want to dive into that partnership between DXC and AWS for just a moment. What are some of the highlights there?
Yeah, well, so first, the partnership goes back several years, very deep in a lot of our customers, but we've recently announced kind of an expansion of that to the next level. And it starts really around how do we take those customers who are maybe stuck on their journey somewhere, they have a workload, they have something that they need to modernize, they need to move, but they just can't get there for whatever reason. And the real value of our partnership with Amazon is to solve that whatever reason.
Okay.
And there's a couple things for it. So for example, we already have tens of thousands of trained Amazon employees. We're actually bringing on 15,000 more of our people as a result of our partnership with Amazon are going to become full certified. So you'll see them running around here,
sure, right,
in the fun jackets next year because they're going to have that top level certification. When you take 15,000 people who are on the ground, in the pits, working with customers every day, and you teach them about cloud, and you certify them, just by definition, things are going to start to move faster. So that's part of our partnership. And then on top of that, we've got some kind of unique technical and financial incentives to help. Again, I say that stuck for whatever reason. Right. The whatever reason is almost as numerous as there are customers. Okay. And we think that the partnership between us and AWS gives us a lot of tools in the toolbox to say, hey, large airline, large bank, large supermarket, whatever it is, whether it's a software problem, a skills problem, maybe a sunk cost hardware problem, we've now got a bunch of tools in the toolbox between us and Amazon to really bring those things together, help you get out faster. Again, but it really, when you're at something like this, it's easy to talk about cloud as the, hey, I got the cloud, I won.
Right.
Cloud to us is part of the journey, right? What's really winning for our customer is that flight takes off, that customer has a great retail experience, that claim gets paid, and cloud is just a hugely important part of that we want to make sure our customers have the ability to take advantage of.
Talking about AWS specifically, what are some of the perhaps latest enhancements, the latest announcements, the latest challenges maybe that AWS is helping you and your customers solve that you're most excited about?
Well, this is going to sound very anticlimactic, especially given the 60,000 people here. It's actually stuff around the mainframe.
Okay.
Which is, again, there's probably 59,000 people here who've never heard of it and don't want to talk about the mainframe. But again, for so many of our customers, that's a sticking point for them, right? They've got these, and mainframes, forgive me for talking to the audience a little bit, but they're kind of like ERPs. They have gravity, they become these anchors, everyone depends on them, and so they slow everything else down. Right. So I think some of the recent enhancements we're doing about mainframe modernization with Amazon and the tools that they're coming out with to help us kind of unstick those customers and start moving those workloads. Again, doesn't really rank a lot of stage time here because it's not trendy, but for our customers, super valuable. And I think that's what's really important to us.
But just because it's not trendy doesn't mean it's not solving a problem. You said unstick that workload. Is the goal then to take that mainframe workload, get it to the next stage, and then ultimately move those workloads?
Yeah, and to your point, exactly right. It's not trendy, but it's a giant problem for these customers. And actually, I think they wish it was a little trendy because it probably would have been solved faster. But yeah, it's around, again, cloud isn't just the answer, it's how do we give them the agility? So let's go back to that airline example. Yeah. They want to update that app. They want to give you better services to their customers. They want to be able to be more agile. And oftentimes their back-end systems, the mainframe or whatever, kind of holds them back from that. So, hey, they know how to write it onto the phone, but how does it talk to everything else? So it's really around how do we take customers on that journey? So how do we modernize that workload? And Surprisingly, sometimes that can actually skip the data center altogether. We have had cases where we go right from the mainframe to the cloud. Not the most common use case, but it's definitely coming up. I also don't want to focus just on mainframe, it's just kind of one of the more exciting ones. But the same thing applies really to any workload you see in the data center. It's really all around that agility. That's at the end of the day, customers want security, cost effectiveness, and agility. It's a tale as old as time, right?
What would you say to the customer that's watching this video, the potential customer watching this video thinking, how do I get started? How do I go down this journey? This all sounds great. I'm in, like, subscribe. I wanna participate. They have that problem maybe nagging at the back of their head. What's the first step in that journey?
Well, I'm going to sound like a salesperson, but it's pick up the phone and call someone like us. You can call Chris at DXC.com.
There you go.
But all joking aside, I think the first thing is to actually, you got to recognize what you get out of it.
Okay.
And I think, so without going into my history, before I came to work for DXC, I was actually CIO of a large. So I was on the other side of the table. And I think the most important thing you could have in that scenario is to be able to translate for your board, for your business, what do I get out of this? Because for you as a CIO or a CTO or whatever, it's gravity to you. You just understand it. You know that if I fix this, that will happen. Right. Boards and executive teams don't understand that. So I think you start by talking to someone like us, and then your next step there is really framing up that conversation internally to say, hey, here's the risk we avoid, here's the agility we bring, here's the concrete thing that you as a non-technical business leader can understand of why this system or tool that you've never heard of is so important that we do this work. And because I think if you start with the story, the work kind of does, not want to say does itself, but the path writes itself, if you will.
It certainly makes it easier, if you will. You're not trying to deal with that uphill battle. You have a little more support along the way.
Well, if everyone knows where you're going, it's easier to get there.
It's an interesting analysis. We were just talking about aviation and airlines. If you know where the flight's going, it sounds like you'll actually hopefully get there.
You might have a chance of getting
there. Well, I love that. Before I let you go, give me something that you're looking forward to moving forward. What are we going to be talking about at the show next year?
That's a great question, and I'm gonna date myself, but I really think the more we can talk about, I'm gonna come back to that agility. The more that we can bring in tools, I think serverless is far from new, but I still think it's kind of coming up to speed, and the ability to kind of put our workloads in the right place at the right time. Any kind of tooling, again, decidedly not the most trendy thing on stage, but all the tools around that, if you do what we do for a living, they're real exciting because they're actually real things that we can then go to our customers and solve a real problem for. So again, maybe it doesn't put you on stage at the keynote, but it definitely makes an effect of millions of people's lives as they're using those systems, and that's exciting for us.
Well, and affecting millions of people's lives certainly affects millions of dollars potentially to the bottom line. And maybe it's not sexy, maybe it's not, we're not printing it on t-shirts, but it is something that is very important and something that DXC is doing a fantastic job about. Fascinating talking to you. I could probably talk to you for another hour and a half about some of this stuff. Great work. We were talking with Chris Drumgoole. Chris runs infrastructure for DXC. Thank you for spending the time. I'm Brian Westbrook, GeekWire Studios. Thanks for watching.